Venus and star blessings. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the asteroid Ceres. Hi, Coco. Coco says, hello, everybody. So Ceres is a very, very powerful asteroid, powerful goddess corresponding to Earth Mother. She has many different complex themes, actually, but fundamentally, because her story is connected to her daughter Persephone, which is not here in the chart, and Pluto. Actually, that just makes me think, let me just have a quick look, because I didn't look. Let me have a quick look as to Persephone's whereabouts at the moment. So she's at 11 Libra, right there with Mars at the moment. So transiting Persephone is at 11 Libra, which means Ceres has already been past her. So that's quite interesting. There's another one called Proserpina, which is the Roman one, and that Roman one is at 4 degrees of Aries, so it's somewhere around here. In any case, the focus today is about Ceres because she will enter Scorpio in just a couple of days' time. Let me just show you that. So today is the 13th. We're just very close to the new moon. There's the moon at 28 Leo. So I don't know how you guys are feeling. I can feel the dark phase of the moon every month, really. It's not the most comfortable moon, because it's a balsamic phase and it is a dark phase. So there's this it's a weird feeling. It's hard to put into words, but the balsamic phase is indicated by Pisces, 12th house, Neptune kind of energy. So it, speaks to a closing of things. It's always a closing of things, ending of something. Obviously preparing for the new cycle, the new moon, which is going to be in Virgo, which I've already spoken about. So there it is there, 16th of September. So 15th for most of you in the Northern Hemisphere. So Ceres goes into Scorpio and she'll be there until the 26th of November. So not too long, just a few weeks, but that activates something in the chart. That could be very important time for you. But first of all, let's just do a little summary, background on Ceres. As I was saying, she's the mother of Persephone, and Pluto in the myth abducted her daughter and took her into the underworld. It's one of my favorite myths, actually. It's got so many nuances, so many layers, and it's such a powerful myth to describe everyone's life journey, actually, at different points in life, because it's a story about maturation, actually, emotional development. It's a story about becoming a woman. It's a story about owning one's own power. It's a story about mother and daughter. It's a story about grief and loss. It's a story about abuse of power. It's a story about renewal, transformation, death, rebirth, and just that journey and that process that we all go through in life over and over again, just even in the one life, let alone, leaving this body and then starting another journey somewhere else. So it's always fascinated me, always intrigued me, the story of Persephone, Pluto and Ceres. And Ceres is extremely prominent in my own chart. Perhaps that's why I have such a strong sort of feeling about her, image about her, and Persephone as well. Persephone is involved in a major aspect pattern in my chart. She's conjunct my Mars. So, and Pluto aspects everything in my chart. So it is a story that speaks to me very, very strongly, that has played out in different ways in my own life from the point of view of renewal, transformation, loss, grief, pain, all those things. Now, I'm speaking to Ceres in Scorpio particularly because it's Scorpio, and Scorpio is ruled by Pluto and Mars. And Pluto is the primary archetypal figure connected to Ceres and her story. So there's a sense here that there's a real intense wave coming through, deeply intense wave of an emotional purging, if you like, an emotional story, deep, complex feelings and things of that nature. I have to say that with Ceres, even though, well, I'll get back to that in a second. Let me just read a couple of psychological themes that Demetra George associates with Ceres. So Ceres is the principle of nurturing and care and concern, connects to our self-image, self-worth, self-esteem. The pathology of loss, which is very much ingrained in the archetype of Ceres, connects to rejection, abandonment, grief, suffering, and anger, because those are all things that Ceres herself went through when Pluto abducted her daughter. So the short story of that myth is that Ceres and Persephone were picking flowers. They were just walking along the earth plane, picking flowers, just enjoying the day. And Pluto just emerged from under the earth, from the underworld, as it were. And so the earth sort of cracked open, and he sort of reached up and he grabbed Persephone and just literally took her into the underworld. And Ceres was enraged, angry, in deep pain, deep grief, deep sense of loss. They were very, very close, those two. Particularly Ceres, she was very, very protective and very attached to her daughter. And Persephone was just entirely innocent at that point. She was just a young maiden, a young girl. And this loss is what subsequently came to being what we know as our seasons, such as summer, winter, spring, autumn, and so forth. And so when Persephone was abducted, through Ceres' grief and anger and pain and suffering, she made the earth barren, because she's the earth mother. She's an archetype that corresponds to grain and food, crops, the food that the earth nourishes us with. So she made the earth barren and to starve humanity, as it were, in order to punish everybody for her own pain and suffering. And Jupiter had a hand in that later on, because he negotiated with Pluto in order to have Persephone be released, but she was only released at certain times of the year, which is when we have spring, new life. So when we have the autumn season and winter, that's the sort of more potent energy on the earth from a Ceres point of view. There's this sense of things decaying, dying, and winter always brings in that hibernating, darker quality of life where we are more withdrawn, more introverted, spend more time indoors and things like that. And we often go through very deep healing processes, actually, from a very different, we still can go through a lot of healing processes through spring and summer. It's just a different energy, different healing process and so forth. So Ceres, therefore, speaks to the experience of things dying and leaving. However, at the end of that journey, there's always a sense of the rebirth and the renewal and the transformation. But we can't get to the rebirth and the new beginnings or new journeys or the release until we go through that deep sense of loss of some kind. So Ceres in Scorpio, I think, is going to really speak to just a very intense journey within ourselves. Now, this could be something that we go through, internally and privately, as a purging journey, as a healing journey, or it can be matters that come up in intense emotional relationships and encounters with people in our life. There might be a sense of grieving and mourning and having to let go and release something or somebody. Whatever it's going to be for any individual, it will be marked by very intense feelings. It could be very dark, very dark feelings and themes and storylines, because we are talking about Scorpio, which takes us into the field of the soul, for one, and it takes us into those darker elements of life, those darker feelings that, some people are just not comfortable with, out of touch with. Some people just completely suppress. Some people live in that world all the time. It just depends who you are. But we're looking at a cathartic journey, but with possibly some very intense emotional content rising up, which may just connect to specific events that have been going on in our life recently. And this will just, pretty much amplify the intensity and volume of the emotional content of the storyline of what's going on in your life. Now, because Ceres is also the nurturing principle, it's the nurturing principle, but it's also the lack of nurture that can emerge as well. With Ceres, what I often see in people's charts is when Ceres is significantly placed, and that would be like connected to Pluto and the moon, very specifically in the chart, there's often an experience around mother issues and the loss of mother, or matters of betrayal, matters of abandonment, matters of rejection. Those themes come up very, very strongly. And although Ceres corresponds to the feminine, maternal mother archetype, it can be experienced in the sense of losing someone, or a sense of loss or grief in any kind of relationship. Actually, it doesn't just have to be mother and daughter. There's also themes around the attempt to control children. That's often a theme that comes up very strongly with Ceres. Themes of transformation are themes that connect to renewal cycles, death and dying, hospice work, birth. So I'm thinking hospice nurses, midwives, people who play those sorts of roles in life can often have a strong Ceres in their chart as well. And there's occult themes as well, which connect to the blood mysteries and the death passage, as Dimitri George calls it. So Ceres is concerned with the child care and children's education. So all things pertaining to children's welfare, children's rights, mothers' rights, child abuse, everything to do with the care and well-being of children is a Ceres matter. And there's a lot of issues going on the earth plane at the moment with missing children, isn't there? And quite apart from what's happening in the USA, there's also things happening in Hawaii. Now, I know Hawaii is part of the USA, but Hawaii is like an island unto itself, really. And there's, I don't know, I think there's about 2,000 children missing there since the fires took place, and there's no accountability for them. No one knows where they are. I mean, what's that about? Kind of makes me wonder. So I think this Ceres in Scorpio, yeah, will bring up some secrets, some hidden things. Yes, that's very, very interesting. Okay, so pregnancy, birth, miscarriage, abortion, nursing, all those things. Woman's menstruation cycle, menopause, just women's health in general, all connected to Ceres. She's a goddess of grain, involved with agriculture and growing cycles, hence, corresponding to the seasons on the earth plane. She's the all-nourishing mother, an indicator of food and food-related services. Now, another theme that I see very strongly or have observed through the years, eating disorders often correspond to Ceres. There's a couple of celebrities that I've looked at through the years that have had eating disorders and have a very, very prominent Ceres in their chart. Ceres moon is a classic combination of planets to speak to those sorts of disorders, because Ceres is about the nurturing principle, and because she corresponds to the crops on the earth plane, and because she stopped, the crops from growing, that can become an internalized psychological pathology for certain individuals with their relationship to food, which often stems from parental experiences and themes anyway, usually around matters of rejection, loss, and so forth. So there's a really interesting lineup here as well, because what's going to happen is Ceres is going to trine Saturn and trine Vesta. So there's a grand trine with Saturn and Vesta. And Vesta is an entirely different goddess and speaks to entirely different things altogether. But without going into the assessment of Vesta too much, I'll just say this: Vesta is fundamentally what we invest in. She's she's an archetype that corresponds to the deep inner private soul work that we do. Very much connected to sexual matters as well, therapies, celibacy, can be a number of different things, really, sex therapists, all sorts of things. And Vesta is in Cancer, so we have the water trinity, amplified here: Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. Now, if this was a grand square, if they were all square each other, I'd be more alarmed on the one hand, but on the other hand, squares do also produce change, so there is that factor too. But in any case, this is a trine, grand trine formation, and squares with Saturn are just really hard work. They can be really painful experiences. They're just not easy. Saturn often speaks to separation, therefore loss of some kind. And when you've got Ceres, who also speaks to loss, and Saturn, who can speak to separation and loss, you've got two pretty difficult archetypes, but they are forming a trine here. So maybe there'll be some type of resolution with answers around the missing children. Let's see what happens. But from the perspective of our own personal journey, from an emotional feeling level, our emotional body, our emotional attitudes, our emotional responses and reactions, just generally how we feel, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about life, how we feel about everything. There's an invitation here to create some integration. Now, all three water signs correspond to the soul, always. Water is the soul. And the harmonious integration here implies that there's something that we can really work on and benefit from harmoniously within our own emotional self, our emotional journeys. And Saturn is, the body here that really brings in the structure, the discipline, the focus, the dedication on working on these things. And Vesta is, as I said, it's what we choose to invest ourselves into. But in any case, Saturn Ceres, two challenging archetypes. So there is that side of it as well. Furthermore, on the 28th of October, I'll show you the chart for that. Let's just skip forward. So it's 29th. No, that's not the one I'm thinking. It's September, that's why. Anyway, there's a full moon here, but it's not what I'm looking for. Sorry, let me just go ahead. So look at Ceres there, right? She's at 17, virtually 18. Now, go to the 29th. This is a lunar eclipse in Taurus. And although it's a wide opposition and a wide conjunction to the sun, it's still there, because with an opposition and a conjunction, you can use a pretty wide orb, generally speaking. And this is a lunar eclipse, and it is the moon, which is an archetype that is very similar in a lot of ways to Ceres. It's Mother Earth, if you like. It's the nurturing principle or lack of it. So in other words, I think this lunar eclipse will be really very important around these Ceres matters. And the Ceres in Scorpio, I think, is going to be really amplified at this time, because there's a lunar eclipse. Now, I'm going to come back and talk about this eclipse, at a later stage, because it's a little bit down the track. But I wanted to bring it up today in reference to Ceres, because Ceres in Scorpio speaks to all the things that I just mentioned. And I think this lunar eclipse is going to really highlight and illuminate a lot of matters that connect to this Ceres in Scorpio. I guess the good thing is that Jupiter is pretty close here, actually, and it's even closer by a degree than what Ceres is, and so Jupiter does help. So maybe there'll be, something that really comes to light at this time around sort of collective matters that have to do with secret matters, secret things that have been held, have not been revealed to the public. about Ceres matters connecting to children in some kind of way. That's a possibility, that's for sure. But going back to our own personal matters and so forth, I expect this full moon to be extremely intense and yeah, really highlighting possibly the matters of what Ceres might have activated in our own chart, if indeed it activates anything at all. Some people might go through this and might not, notice anything major going on, but some people will. Not every transit affects every person all the time. It's just not how it works. So it is about being in tune with your own self, first of all, your own chart, and your own story, and the script of your chart, which is your soul's desires and intentions. Now, Demetra says about Ceres in Scorpio, natives identify nurturance with intense and deep emotional bonding. Ideally, the mothering experience was intimate and fostered a sense of emotional self-control. This is relative to having Ceres in Scorpio natally, but we can take some of these points and think about them from the point of view of Ceres transiting through Scorpio, right? Nurturance is expressed through emotional commitments to others and through acting as a catalytic agent that transforms or heals them. Self-acceptance may be gained through transforming one's own inner negativity and lack of trust into the healing power of love. I particularly love this sentence here. I think this is very, very powerful. Self-acceptance may be gained through transforming one's own inner negativity and lack of trust into the healing power of love. Because Scorpio is the archetype that really corresponds to matters of trust and matters of having been betrayed. So if there's some sort of trust issues and betrayal issues that have gone on in your own life through certain circumstances, I know one of my followers on YouTube, I'm not going to say her name, although she wrote this publicly, but still I like to just be respectful. She just mentioned recently that she's discovered that her husband has betrayed her, cheated on her, and so forth. So she feels an incredible, obviously, sense of betrayal and injustice, and that was activated as far as she feels through the Juno and Leo, Juno-Venus conjunction, Juno-Venus has brought up a lot of matters of injustice in relationships, injustices that you've had to go straight to the heart of it and be authentic to your own heart and express what you feel. A lot of people have gone through themes of that sort of nature. So let me just finish reading. So yes, I was just saying that I really love this statement. Self-acceptance may be gained through transforming one's own inner negativity and lack of trust to the healing power of love. I like that because it addresses and points to the fact that we can get so swamped by our own inner negativity, which is justified, let's say, because it's been activated by a deep sense of betrayal or a deep sense of loss or a deep experience of pain of some kind. And that subsequently brings up the inability to trust love, to trust people, to trust that people's love is genuine, people's hearts are open and true, because a lot of the time they're not. There's so much deception on the planet, so many people hiding behind a mask and having, you know, a very specific sort of ulterior motive and agenda as to why they're associating with you or connecting with you or whatever it is. There's just, unfortunately, there's just a lot of negative things like that going on. I suppose there always has been, really, but it just seems to be more to the surface now. We can just see it a lot more on you know, on every scale, in every corner of the earth, on every level, every industry, you know, wherever it is. It's all there. It's all just being exposed, basically, because Pluto's finishing his journey in Capricorn. And the last degrees of Capricorn, you know, because Pluto moves so slowly, so, you know, spends quite a long time in the last degrees, and it's just like a cataclysmic, intensified explosion of the breakdown of these Saturnian Capricorn sort of structures, if you like, that have outlived their purpose. And that will filter through in a number of different ways in our life, because Capricorn is opposite Cancer, which is our own inner emotional security, square Libra, which is all our relationships, and it's square Aries, which is our own identity, our own sense of life force, willpower. So there's a lot going on, right? And finally, the last statement or the last words in that statement refers to the absolute healing power of love, which sometimes we look for in others or through others, or expect it from others, or desire it from others, or want it or need it. That's all fine. That's part of being human. But it's always going to come down to our own inner love. You know, just to put it very simply, it's our own capacity to love our own self beyond what anybody else, beyond how anybody else might be able to do that. It's the old classic saying that if you can't love yourself, you can't really love anybody else, and nor can you allow anybody else to really, truly, authentically, deeply love you. Because there's barriers there. There's this message that your aura, your psychic energy, your mental patterns, mostly unconsciously, give off to the world, to life, to everyone around you, that you're not allowing that love to come to you. So no matter how much we've been hurt, no matter how much we've been betrayed, no matter how much we've suffered, everyone goes through that shit. There's no exceptions. Everyone goes through some kind of loss, some kind of pain, some kind of rejection, some kind of betrayal. They're shitty experiences, you know. They're not pleasant. We all know that because we've all been through it at some point. But I think it's a spiritual initiation and test when those things happen, because there are two very distinct options, although there are grey areas, if you like, or areas in between these two extremes. But the choice is to you either shut your heart down and you know, not be open to life itself because of the hurt and the anger and the resentment, or you accept what's happened and continue to love. I know it's a hard one, but I think it's fundamental to our spiritual growth and consciousness and evolution. Because at the end of the day, every story, every experience, every journey is part of the soul's desires and intentions. That includes being betrayed, being rejected. It's the soul is actually, you know, desiring to have numerous experiences. That's the purpose of evolution, until finally it reaches a point where it has no desire left for what Jeffrey Wolf Green terms as separating desires. The only desire remaining is to return back to source. So I think that's, you know, that's looking at it from a bigger picture level, but it helps, because otherwise we can become so subjective and so consumed about the different little chapters and passages and storylines and things that happen, and we just close ourselves off. So Ceres in Scorpio, in other words, can be a really powerful time to gauge into those deep, complex feelings that we may have about lots of different situations in our life pertaining to the past or the present. And it is an opportunity to purify and purge ourselves of those old stories, those battle scars, anything that's happened. The benefit is in our ability to release, so that we can purify and cleanse our soul and move forward and just, troop on. We have to be a trooper in this world. Life's not easy for most people. We have to be courageous. We have to forgive. We have to let go. These are all difficult things because, they're difficult for different reasons for different people, right? But whichever way you look at it, they are difficult things to do, but they are necessary for the initiation of the soul and its evolution moving forward. So those are the main things that I just wanted to quickly mention today, as I was sitting here feeling the dark moon energy and thinking to myself, this energy feels really kind of, I don't know what word to use. It doesn't feel happy. It feels like a strange energy, very strange. So anyway, that led me to looking at the chart for today, and then I remembered that Ceres is, moving into Scorpio, and I thought, okay, so let's have a think about that. Let's have a look at that. And those are the ideas that I have. So hopefully they help you in some kind of way. And let me know in the comments what you think, what you feel, if this speaks to you. And let's get ready for this new moon in Virgo, which is just, a day or so away. Beautiful opportunity again it's a harvest moon. So Virgo, it is a powerful archetype to remind us that nothing is perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. And that's okay. And the humbleness and humility and recognition that can come out of that can really help us do the further work that we need to do on ourselves, on our soul. That's the main thing that I see about the new moon in Virgo. And of course, things related to health, health and well-being on all levels. And, getting more organized. Sorry, there's this background noise coming through. Just becoming more organized, perhaps, or more disciplined with something that you've been a little bit slack in of late. There's lots of great things about this new moon in Virgo. The Neptune opposition, it's a bit bit funny, bit tricky, but I have spoken about it in the new moon video, so check that out if you want to hear more, if you haven't heard it. And I'll see you guys very soon. Much love. Bye for now.